All right. Good morning. Good morning. Good morning. This is it. This is the real one this morning. We're not going back. I'm Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy vet, certified doer, and the laced up legislator for the House of Delegates, 93rd District. It is an honor to serve you all this morning. We got so much going on. I want to remind you about our uh, event coming up next Saturday. Next Saturday is yes, it is next Saturday. Next Saturday at Northside Park, we are doing our community sing along. It's gonna be great. I'm saying it's gonna be great because it is because it's gonna be a good time. So honored and grateful to have y'all here this morning. Um, so we're gonna get right into it. Um, I know that many of you have had a lot of questions about Jackie, what are we doing? How are we doing? Who does this? And a lot of education that we do around here about how things work both at state and local government. So before I bring on our guest for today, I want to talk a little bit about the role of some of the actual jobs that we have here uh, in the Commonwealth. So, like, what on earth is a Commonwealth's attorney, and why should every voter's eyebrow be raised right now? Is the question. It's a day. It's a day. Why should everybody have an eyebrow raised? All right, so listen to this. The Commonwealth's attorney, that position, because we're going to talk a little bit about that. That's a primary that we have coming up. And I'd say this: anybody that doesn't know what a primary is, that's okay. That's okay. We're not judging. We're not judging anybody. So primary elections, at least in most cases, are where parties tend to pick who their candidate is, right? And that for us in the Commonwealth of Virginia is happening next Tuesday. And it's like, wow. There's a lot that leads up to this. But we have an opportunity. There's several things that are going to be on the ballot for primary for us next Tuesday. One, it's going to be our lieutenant governor's race, which is like second in command to the governor. And then we will also have our attorney general's race, which is something I think we should do a whole show on just understanding what the attorney general is, we should be preparing, what kind of questions we should be asking an attorney general, especially when it comes to the 10th Amendment and all the stuff that's going on, all the things that are going on at the federal level. So I want to give you guys the opportunity to connect with, meet with, have a conversation with folks that'll be on the ballot. That'll be on the ballot because this is super important. And today I've brought in for you the Commonwealth's attorney, right? For Norfolk, right? Because every locality pretty much has their own Commonwealth's attorney. Let's see. So, what is the position even? So, our Commonwealth's attorney, it's not some like random hire. It's a job it is already tattooed in the seventh article, I believe, Article 7, Section 4 of the Virginia Constitution, right beside positions like the sheriff, the treasurer, the clerk of court. All of these are what we call constitutional officers. You can say it with me, constitutional officers. They are constitutional officers that play a huge role in what we do. And they are locally elected, but independent and answer only to you and your ballot pen, period. That's it. They answer to no one else but that, which, sometimes that could be interesting, right? You are the one who does the hiring and firing, which means you are the one who has to do the research and referral and understanding of who the person is and what you expect from. Is that fair? I think that's fair. I think that's what y'all be asking for. I think that's what you asked for. But to no end, what else did I want to say before we get in? So some of their duties, and before we bring our Commonwealth's attorney in, I'll talk about the duties because it's important to bark up a tree, but it's super important to know that you're barking up the right tree. There's several different, actually, let's bring Ramin in because I'm behind on time today. We're going to bring Ramin in, our Commonwealth's attorney, in to sort of talk about did someone Still no gram. Yeah, I know. Still nothing on Instagram. I don't think it's me. I don't think it's me on the Instagrams. I think it's somebody else, and I think it's Instagram not working. So I apologize for the folks that are going to miss out today on Instagram. We probably have to do this again. We'll probably have to try and do this because I think this is the first time this has happened, which is really weird. I don't like it. But I think it is, you guys, Instagram really loves these things. So we might have to figure out how to make this work. But I appreciate you on LinkedIn for letting us know that it's still no Instagram. All right, let me bring our Commonwealth's attorney to the stage, Ramin Fadahi. Can you say your name correctly? Like, say it so that people understand it correctly.
It's fine, Jackie. You got it. It's Ramin Fadahi.
Yeah, and I know.
It's great to be here.
Right. But you know how we are about saying, if we can say, what is it? What's the guy? I can't think of the hockey player, Wayne Gretzky, or like if we could say all of these names correct, we can say Ramin Fadahi correct. And I feel like I'm not doing the right punctuation on Ramin.
You got it.
I got it. Okay, so you are what's your role? What do you do? What's your job?
I am the Commonwealth's attorney for Norfolk.
Okay.
For anybody who didn't come up in Virginia, we're DAs and other places. Like it's this really glamorous job where we go into court and jump up and down and shout a lot. And really what we do is a lot of paperwork that's super boring, but that has like a major effect on people's lives. But I am the chief prosecutor for Norfolk. So I handle, I run an office of 40 lawyers and 45 staff, so 85 people who are in charge of administering justice in the city. When the police make an arrest and when a magistrate takes out charges on somebody, if it's a felony, which means something that's punishable by more than a year, my office gets involved and we figure out, is the right person charged? What are they charged with? Are they charged right? Can we prove the case? And what is the best resolution for that case to be fair to the community? Not just to the accused, not just to a victim if there's a victim, but what's right for the city of Norfolk. And the 40 of us handle about 4,000 cases a year, mostly felonies with a mix of serious misdemeanors, which misdemeanors, by the way, aren't traffic tickets. They carry up to 12 months in jail possibility. But that's what we do, handle 4,000 cases a year in your name.
Oh, my goodness. So prosecute felonies, lead and assist with criminal investigations, argue criminal appeals, optional but not mandatory to take on serious misdemeanors. I think jail time or fines up to $500. Am I wrong in saying that?
All the way down to those crimes, yes.
All the way, yep. And explicitly not required to handle sort of the civil chores like helping with ordinance or suing if you have to sue the city, right? Like that's a part of it, or that's the city's attorney. That's
right. We are actually explicitly forbidden from doing those things. If there's a city attorney or county attorney like there is in Norfolk, we're out of that stuff. So you fall on the courthouse steps or the police bust up your car while breaking into your neighbor's house to serve a warrant. Like none of that's us. That's the city attorney.
And a fun fact for everyone, our code has like 300 plus statutory duties for this office. I'm sure coffee is required from me.
Oh, there. Yep. We have a 260-page manual. We do everything from the appeals of the denial of voter registrations to we have to figure out what to do when people don't turn in their marriage licenses. We got a list of unexecuted marriage licenses every year.
What? What do you do when people don't turn in? What's the recourse when people don't turn in their marriage licenses?
So we have a listserv for prosecutors, and the most hilarious query I ever sent out was like, I just got this list. What am I supposed to do with this thing? And people said everything from like, I had to talk to some guy's mother because he was dead. And he died before the wedding. And that was a horrible conversation to people who I got a Republican colleague who sent me a letter and said, this is totally ridiculous. I stick it straight in the shredder because I've got crimes to prosecute. And so we get notice and then I focus on murders. That's what I do.
had no idea. I had no idea. So let's do some powers that matter. Charging discretion. Tell people a little about. You talked about this is like policy in real time. You have charging discretion. What does that mean?
Well, we kind of do and kind of don't.
No, okay.
The vast majority of charges in Virginia are brought by what are called arrest warrants. And in other states, that's the prosecutor, not in Virginia. So when you hear somebody got arrested for a murder last night and got charged, that was actually not me. That's the cops working with the magistrate system. If you hear, oh, this guy got arrested and he got let out on bail the same night, also not me. In a lot of other states, that's the prosecutor, but it's the magistrate system. They're like junior varsity judges who are under the supervision of the Virginia Supreme Court. But what we do is we have the discretion to figure out, was somebody charged right or wrong? Were they overcharged or undercharged? Were they rightly charged or wrongly charged? So once the person's been arrested, processed, has gotten the initial bail decision, then we look at it and say, is it the right person? Is it the wrong person? Is it a crime? Is it not a crime? Is it the right crime? And then if it is a crime, should the person be convicted? Should they be diverted? Should they be treated? Should they go into the jail? So our discretion is focusing on what to do with somebody after they've been charged. There's a small number of cases, maybe 1 out of 15 or so, where we make the initial charging decision. That's usually by what's called an indictment. But that's like a tiny, tiny piece of what we do. Almost everything that we do is what's called reactive prosecution, which is like, oh, well, this person got charged. Now let's figure out why. Right. So there are times when I watch the news and there's a news piece and it's like, this person got charged with this. I was like, what the fuck was that? Like, why did that happen? And I have to like, people think I did it, and I have to go figure out, like, why did that happen? It's like, oh no, that shouldn't have happened at all.
That's wild. I had no idea. So it's like you're reviewing things, more so than, I love that you said it's more reactive justice.
Yeah. I mean, there are times when it's like, okay, the horse is out of the barn. Now, do I need to get this horse back in the barn? And we had a case, and I'm not busting anybody's chops. You know, law enforcement officers have to make sort of, spur of the moment decisions. Yeah. We had a couple charged here in Norfolk about 9 months or a year ago with like very serious felonies and held without bail. And it turned out that the violent crimes which they were charged with were like complete self-defense. And it's like, oops, like they shouldn't have been charged. and yeah, I didn't do it. I was the one who then had to look and be like, no. No, but sorry about that. Yes, I didn't do that. And again, that's, we work in a system populated by human beings. Perfection is impossible, but like, that I wound up having to figure out like, no. These people were in the right, and they didn't commit a crime. So no, we're not going to try them and convict them.
Oh, that's important. That's super important. Let's talk about that, because one of the ways, like you and I think we what year did you get elected? In 2021? 2021. Okay, right. So I think I got elected that fall. It seems like the following year, but it was the same kind of, we're in the same class of starting our elected careers. Is I think the first summer, actually, I think it was the first summer of my first session. And maybe you were on the job at that point, maybe 6 months or so, or maybe it was the second year. I can't remember, but we had the opportunity to sort of, well, at least I know I picked your brain about witness protection. Right? Because a lot of times I think we see, oh man, witnesses didn't show up and, like couldn't. And there's a whole system behind this that is a responsibility. I know. Go ahead. Let me point at the legislature for certain things. So talk to me a little bit about, because everybody's like, yes, you're trying to have the discernment based off of the police work of how to proceed. But how in the world can you get people to court? How do you, talking about convictions and things, how does that even, go ahead. I know you're doing I don't have investigators. The cops don't work for me. The sheriff doesn't work for me. Right.
So my job is almost like Iron Chef. Like I'm sitting. You can imagine me sitting in the courtroom, and then somebody like dumps a bunch of ingredients on counsel's table, and it's like, all right, now now make a meal. And like if I get chicken salad, that's great. If I get the other stuff, like ain't nobody eating that. And they're so to move sort of back one step. Everybody thinks that when the police make an arrest, then the guy's just going to prison. And there are a couple of things that are wrong with that it's just not like that. So first of all, I talk about how prosecutors don't affect the crime rate. And part of that is because of what's known as the solve rate on crimes. And solving a crime under the standard definition means figuring out who did it to a standard of 50-50, coin flip. Okay? Mm-hmm. In the United States, the solve rate on murders is 60%. So for every 100 murders committed in America, only 60 people are ever arrested. So there are 40 people out walking around or getting killed in retaliation or whatever happens. And the solve rate on other crimes, like for property crimes, it's between 1 in 5 and 1 in 10 are solved. So that leaves you like 80 to 90% that aren't. But the solve rate is just 50-50. And then if I go to court on 50-50, by law and by the Constitution, I will lose 100% of my cases. Because 50-50 ain't enough. Proof beyond a reasonable doubt is way more than 50-50. It is excluding every theory of innocence, every reasonable theory. So you've got a couple stages. First of all, you've got the crime that doesn't get solved because people don't call the police or because it's the perfect crime. Some people are just lucky. But some people, like, especially on murders, like I kill somebody, it's usually somebody I know, and the witness is somebody else I know, and we usually all live next to each other. And people ain't trying to get killed themselves. So there's the whole group of 40 out of 100 that nobody ever gets arrested because people ain't calling. Then out of the other 60, you've got people who'll talk to the police on the low, or people who'll talk to the police, and the police will make an arrest. And then all of a sudden, the buddies of whoever they called the cops on will start going like, hey, like, great to see you. Heard you called the cops on my cousins. Are you really feeling like going to court? I don't think you're feeling like going to court, are you? That'd be terrible, right? Like, and then all of a sudden, out of that 60, there's a whole bunch where people don't show up. And then there are a whole bunch where people do show up, and then bad things start to happen to them. And in Virginia, you mentioned witness protection. Like, we saw a lot of this stuff start to happen, especially during COVID. The solve rate during COVID on homicides went way down in Norfolk and in other places. And, I had a couple of very high profile cases. Remember, I don't charge these cases. The cases come to me, where they were charged under a lot of pressure on other actors in the system. And then they landed in my lap, and then everybody went poof and disappeared. And I had lawyers going out into Portsmouth looking for people. Lawyers
were going out.
Guns. Like, yeah. And that's who I don't have anybody else to send, Jackie. That's who I send. Like, we have to look for somebody, like, we go ourselves. The quadruple shooting in front of Legacy nightclub, like, that I prosecuted personally a couple of years ago, like, I literally was on an aircraft carrier, like, interviewing witnesses. Like, myself. Like, the cops went with me on that, but that was a courtesy. Like, but we'll go out on our own. But part of the problem in some of these cases, like, there will be witnesses who will talk to us and be like, oh, yeah, we ain't coming. Nope. Like, good luck finding us. And sometimes those witnesses are victims. And we could issue like arrest warrants for them, but then do we arrest the victim while we dismiss the charge against the defendant? Like, that doesn't work.
That's crazy.
But
that's crazy.
One of the things that we were able to do, though, is a witness protection program here in Virginia, because we had never had one. And the sort of attention to some of the cases here in Norfolk where witnesses just didn't want to come, I was able to talk to Speaker of the House, Don Scott, who's one of the guys endorsing my reelection. Thank you, Don. Is that I said, can we get money to offer protection? Like, whether it's temporary shelter, whether it's a security system, something. Can we get something? And to his immense credit, Speaker Scott put in a budget amendment. So for the first time in the history of Virginia, not just in Norfolk, but all over the Commonwealth, we have money to protect witnesses. And by the way, that we actually have 2 witness protection buckets of money now, because it wasn't just the General Assembly. Congress helped too, because I spoke to Bobby Scott, the dean of the Virginia federal delegation, who also endorses me and who's a dear friend and mentor. And Bobby Scott got a federal funding stream for witness protection in Virginia that went into effect earlier this year. So that's one of the unenumerated duties of Commonwealth's attorney, is to be the chief beggar for the criminal system in your city. So I went out, I begged, I had my cardboard sign. Well, we'll work for witness protection.
Yeah. And part of that, so like that's where it was like that summer. I just remember finding out that number one, there's a witness protection program. Number two, it is not funded, and it's been around since the early 90s. Number three, it was both witness protection, and then on top of that, there's a thing of where if you're a victim of a crime, like you can't even get support from the state, because we were like, if you don't cooperate with police, if you don't cooperate with police, then you can't give victims victim compensation. So we're telling people we cannot protect you and we will not protect you. And we also won't give you the support that we said we would give you if you don't talk to the police. Wild. We fixed that, right, in the General Assembly. But that was like, I think my first year, kind of sort of, right? Kind of sort of tried to say, like, look, I'm trying, Remain. I'm trying. But y'all don't understand. That's why I said,
you're doing great. You're just 1 out of 140 on some of this stuff. You're remarkably persuasive. But between the Republicans and the anti-criminal justice reform Democrats, there's only but so much we can do.
There's only so much you can do. That is so true. And I was like, I thought it was the wildest thing, but I think you did an op-ed at one point. Maybe it was right before COVID, right during COVID. Was it during? I can't remember, but you did this op-ed just on all of this and outlining like how there's going to be an ebb and a flow because of all of these sort of systematic, I would say, failures to a degree, right? Like you are incentivized to hand out felonies like candy, like in order to have funding, right? In order to be considered productive. But I was like, what in the world? And this is why people won't show up. And we're upset because we can't. This is me, like as a legislator, like I'm sitting here like looking, people are upset, but we are not a victim or witness friendly state.
No. And I mean, even today, I worked in this past session on a bill called the Virginia Access to Justice Act, because we're chronically starved. We don't have a public defender in every city and county in Virginia. Talking about victim services, like even the fix for victim services said the only non-cooperating victims who get help are ones who've been actively intimidated. And that's not victim friendly. Oh, and P.S., you don't get reimbursement for your losses unless you're a violent crime victim. So somebody comes and like breaks into your house and like steals your rent money and you get evicted. Like the Virginia Victims Fund is like, nope, you weren't physically hurt, can't have your money. And you're supposed to squeeze out of somebody if they ever get arrested. And that doesn't work either. So we are not a victim centric state, but I worked on the Access to Justice Act to try and do that. And, the number, everybody thinks more prosecutors equals more jail and more convictions. But we talked about misdemeanors, like here in Norfolk and all over Hampton Roads, by the way, every single one of the 7 cities, you can get arrested on something that carries up to 12 months in jail. And half the time, there's no prosecutor in the room for you to appeal to for a null pros, to appeal to for diversion. And since the magistrates do the charging, I punch you in the nose, Jackie, you can go to the magistrate and take out a warrant. That I get arrested and I get a lawyer, you go to court with no prosecutor. Or even better, I punch you in the nose, you get a warrant, and then I go to the magistrate and I falsely say that you punch me in the nose in return. And you get arrested. And so I'm correctly arrested, you're wrongfully arrested, then you and I show up in front of a judge, and then a judge with all of his implicit biases and, has to make some sort of credibility judgment on who's guilty and who's not. No
Fair.
prosecutor anywhere in Hampton Roads on that, because 415,000 misdemeanors charged in Virginia, zero money from Richmond. Sorry, Jackie, that's on y'all. Zero money in
Okay,
Richmond.
beat me up. No money from Richmond. Well,
That's right.
I'm a believer in it's okay to bark up the tree, but make sure you're barking up the right tree. So
Yes.
say that again.
Yeah.
Say that sentence again.
Every domestic violence case, every DUI case, every stalking, every brandishing, I pull out a gun and say, I'm going to kill you. Every shoplifting, it's the crime of the century. Every under $1,000 shoplifting, there's no money from Richmond, none. And there's only limited money from the city of Norfolk, the city of Virginia Beach, wherever you talk about. I have prosecutors on DUI cases. I have them on domestic violence cases, but like domestic violence, I do it with grant money. DUIs, I do it with city money. Stalkings, brandishings, sexual battery, like somebody grabs you where they're not supposed to. Like all of those I do on efficiencies and savings from not sweating low-level felonies. So punching somebody in the face is a misdemeanor that carries up to 12 months in jail. Possessing $10 of your cousin's Adderall is a felony that carries up to 10 years in jail. So I get funding for the Adderall, but I don't get funding for the punch you in the face. So
I think people know that, and this was why my mind was so blown. My mind was so blown. We've got a couple comments. I've got Instagram working too, so I want to at least put up this LinkedIn user comment that let me make sure we can show them on the side here too. LinkedIn user says, how can Virginia citizens get educated on various aspects of Virginia and municipal government? It appears the curriculum is missing from the community. Is there some place other than delegate classes effort to learn more about civics, especially local law? Yeah, there's places. I would always start with your city charter. Like the way I would look at it is figure out like what is super interesting to you, Rami, and you can weigh in on what you think. Like, what is your jam? What is important to you? What does your city charter say? What does the Constitution of Virginia say? And then start digging from there, because all city has what is called a charter, like how they want it, how they do business. But because we're a Dillon Rules state or Commonwealth, all of their powers are given and taken by the state government. What you got, Rami? What you think?
All right, I'm too clumsy to put this in the group chat, but there's a brief explainer on the Virginia court system website about how the Virginia courts work. But the trouble is we have 133 cities and counties in Virginia, and every one of them has kind of its own body of law. The General Assembly has the state code, and then they pass basically special laws that make up the city charter. So I mean, even this kind of basic civics, I don't know where to send you. I had to learn it all on my own. And I mean, there's a certain like paranoid piece of me that's like, yeah, this is on purpose. Like the more civically ignorant we are, the more susceptible we are to manipulation by our local and state governments. And a lot of local elected officials prefer it that way. I mean, I have Commonwealth attorneys who tell me my goal is to make sure people forget that I'm an elected official. And I'm like, that is terrible. That is absolutely, of course, they're laughing all the way to the bank. And I'm facing a dude who raised $800,000 to unseat me. So maybe they're the smart ones and I'm the stupid one. But like, the less people know, the less accountability there is and the less participation there is. And people can just treat these like, jobs they got hired for instead of jobs they got elected for.
That is true. That is true. And that's why I'm starting to try to get people to understand that, election is hiring. Like you are the people who hired. So stop thinking we're no longer voting. We are hiring people. That we're hiring people. So there's a question over here. First, Lisa Asgale says hello. She wants to say hello to everybody. She said, and we used to charge victims at the appellate level for document reproduction costs, and when there's a judicial area, and remand through it was not a victim area. Thank goodness Paul Krizik changed that. I don't know if I read that correctly. Change this. She said there was an error in what she said. So charging people for documentation. Is that?
Yeah, transcripts and appellate documents. Oh yeah, yeah. No, that but throwing up roadblocks to access to justice via charging people is a huge thing. I mean, it criminalizes poverty and it limits transparency.
Yeah.
Thanks, Nathan. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Saying hey. I'll see you at Harris Teeter tonight. We're the hair. I'm not going to say which Harris Teeter because I don't want people to buy up all the. They have a dinner special at Harris Teeter where Nathan and I like that. That's where we meet every Thursday night in the Harris Teeter dinner line.
Because that's when you're working. When you're working, that's what you get, the grocery store dinner. And I imagine it's good.
I don't play golf, but I do eat prime rib.
Okay, we got another question from the cousin. It says, can the issue be punitive focus of law rather than the structural issues that exacerbate the issues? Can the issue be the punitive focus of the law rather than the structural issues that exacerbate the issue?
So I'm a progressive prosecutor, and out of the 120 of us who were elected in Virginia, there are 5 of us who are progressives. We cover about a third of the population of Virginia, but our prosecutor organization works like the Senate, so everybody gets 1 vote. So we get hooted down on the regular. But one of the things that we talk about as progressives is that, like, the criminal justice system, first of all, has been 2-tiered since the Declaration of Independence was signed. Like, liberty and justice for all and equality in the eyes of the law was really limited, for example, to white men over the age of 21 who owned property. So if you're a woman, forget it. You were black, forget it. If you didn't own property, forget it. And we've tried to expand the umbrella of equality to people over the years, but even today, especially in Trump's America, like if you're rich, you get 1 brand of justice. If you're white, you get 1 brand of justice. If you're from Guatemala, you get put on a plane. If you're an Afrikaner South African, you get welcomed here. Like it's and that means that the justice system people don't trust, and that contributes to the 40 people who out of the 100 who don't get arrested on murders. But we also, when people say, well, the justice system is creating mass incarceration and that's a malfunction, it's actually really not. And just like you said, Jackie, there was a time until a couple of years ago where the number of lawyers that the state government paid me to have was directly related to how many felony convictions I got, which meant that there were a lot of prosecutors who were like, oh, yeah, I'll jam that guy with a felony because that's a fraction of a lawyer. Where my policies that are on my website, like I think I'm the only prosecutor in Virginia who has my plea policies available on my website. If you search Norfolk Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, you'll see them. Like, I said, I'm not doing that. Like, I'm not stripping people of their civil rights and their right to vote and be a notary and have a million, professional licenses and be a juror, just to get paid. Like, that's evil. But a lot of the pieces of the system work like that. Like your local sheriff, one of the biggest determinants of how much money your local sheriff gets is how many human beings are in his jail. Right?
Yeah, how many
it's like there are sheriffs who complain, I don't have people in my jail. It's like, even when crime is down, I don't have people in my jail. And it's like, this isn't like the Omni. Like the idea isn't to have maximum vacancy. It's actually, the idea is to have it like empty. I mean, obviously jail exists because people do bad things and we need to prosecute them. But like, if we were talking about like a fantasy world where everything stopped, like you wouldn't need them. And we're not there, but like, if crime numbers are down, you want the jail population to be down too, not the jail population to be up, which, by the way, is exactly what's going on in Norfolk. Crime is down and the jail population's down, which proves that you don't have to choose between public safety and civil rights, but a lot of people will tell you you do.
Facts on facts on facts. I don't love it. I didn't learn a lot of this until I became a delegate and like started. Again, it was access to people and access to information. I also want to put on the record that a piece of this, and for responsibility, right? Because we're educating here, right? Educate, advocate, celebrate, legislate. That's what we do. But my responsibility in all of this too is to pick judges.
Yes. Oh, yes.
is to
Mhm.
select judges. So the reason why I think, I mean, you mentioned earlier about ignorance is bliss for some people. Ignorance has been bliss, I think, in some
Mhm.
levels of government because folks have been able to sort of in the background just, you know, um, you know, make decisions that affect the justice system without you even knowing that you should be holding them accountable. But I know that you've made some really valid points here. I'm going to take this link you sent here and put it on the website. Now, this one, we don't have much time. I know that we kind of got a late start. That's my fault. I don't know what was going on with Instagram, but this question I imagine is don't go too crazy on this one. So Javon Maven says, we're gonna be honest and truthful, and I'm gonna lead and then lead you in. Javon Maven says, can you explain the reason for the sort of sudden urgency for harsh punishment for shoplifters now? Is there an agenda? I understand shoplifting is wrong, punishment needs to match, but the punishment needs to match the crime. I can say, Javon, this is a question that I've been asked a lot too, right? Like, just like, hey, what's going on? Am I missing something? What's happening here? What is this big deal between our Commonwealth's attorney and the city? And I think many people are just as confused as you are. But Ramin, can you sort of give a picture of, I mean, we talked a little about the duties of the Commonwealth's attorney versus the city's attorney, but I know we kind of know where this came from, right? It seems very political. And this is delegate, or this is Jackie Glass saying as a voter and as a resident, because I'm also a constituent of folks that it came across as political, but we were all sort of like up in arms as to where did this even come from?
Yeah. I put a link again. I'm too inept to like work on the public comment section, but I put a link up to a weighty story called "Follow the Funds." This is about money and it's about power, and there is, you know, in Norfolk there is a group that's commonly referred to as the shadow government, and I thought they were like Bigfoot. I thought they were like something that like paranoid people talked about because it all sounds like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
But there is a bipartisan group of rich old dudes in Norfolk who finances local elections. They never run for anything themselves, but they like being the man behind the man. And until I met some of them and they introduced themselves to me as members of this organization, they don't call themselves that, but there's basically a group of elected officials who are with the shadow government and a group who are not cool with the shadow government. The shadow government's not cool with them. I'm in column B, and this shadow government has tried to, they controlled the Commonwealth's attorney's office up till about 2009, and the wife of their last favorite Commonwealth's attorney is Courtney Doyle, who's on city council. And they tried in 2013, 2017, 2021, and now in 2025 to put somebody in the office who, talks like they do and acts like they do, and who says, "Oh, I'm going to depoliticize the office." And we've now talked long enough this morning to know that depoliticizing a Commonwealth attorney's office or saying I'm putting victims first is the equivalent of shouting "All lives matter" when people say Black lives matter. And that shoplifting in Norfolk is down almost 20% this year. The rhetoric that we heard around shoplifting is dead false about what I'm doing. It's dead false about what's actually going on. The only place shoplifting is a major problem is on Fox News. That's where it's a problem. Now, you're right. People need to be punished or held accountable in some way. Like, a 19-year-old girl who runs out of the Verizon store on an impulse with an iPhone needs to be treated differently than a dude who like goes into Home Depot for the 50th time and steals on orders from a fence. They're different, and PS, like somebody who steals $1,000 on impulse from a store needs to be treated differently than somebody who steals $100 worth of all of the earthly possessions of an unhoused person at the Salvation Army. Like they're different. But this shoplifting panic is all politics. It was a bone that elected officials threw to their donors. and the way that they were frankly lying about what I was doing and not doing to make a political point. But it's been great because it's put this out in the open, because anybody with half a brain understands how effed up this is and what a bogus argument this is, and that it was frankly the mayor and the people who backed the mayor who were playing politics with the justice system, and then they had the audacity to say that they were going to pay for the lawyer in the city attorney's office because they were going to yank these cases out from under me, and give them to their city attorney, and then they were going to fine shoplifters. So you're going to fine poor people and make them poorer, and that's going to make them stop shoplifting. Like that's the kind of idea that was like birthed at the local country club where people are not inhabitants of the real world. So it's completely bogus. It's just completely bogus, but it's been fantastic because it's thrown into high relief what we're dealing with.
Yeah, I think everybody, what I thought was, like, again, I'm stepping back, like as a voter, I was so confused. And I think people still are, to your point. And someone just said, yeah, make it make sense for us in the cheap seats because we don't understand. I mean, I don't think that you were alone. I wish there was some more like coordination and that we could really wholeheartedly, I think there's space for the Commonwealth attorney, the city, the state delegation to have a whole conversation about how we do access to justice, how we like collectively sort of see. My hope is that I see some of these things in the when we get ready to hear our city's legislative agenda, that if these are real issues, right? Like it comes to Javon's point, right? I understand it's wrong and punishment needs to match the crime. And that also underscores your point, Remy. But like, if we're really real about this, like if this is, because we're not playing over here, right? Like we're not playing over here, that we end up having a real conversation about what it looks like to support the things that are actually happening in the city and that need to be prosecuted and support with.
Well, and let's be real about this. Norfolk's budget last year was like 1.6 or 1.8 billion with a B dollars. Okay. They always plead poverty with all of us, whether it's the Boys and Girls Club or whether it's my office. And for my 85 prosecutors, the city's grand total layout, after you subtract the money they get from Richmond to pass on to me, is under $4 million a year. And we've already talked about the fact that it's not as if I'm not in the room, the case, like, nobody ever gets charged. Plenty of people get charged. It's just guilty people walk and innocent people get convicted because there's nobody there. Right. If the city wanted to solve this problem, in scare quotes, they could probably do it in my office for under $3 million a year. Probably under that. It's a rounding error in the budget. Like, I could have a prosecutor on every jailable misdemeanor in Norfolk. Every single one. We could be the first city in Hampton Roads to do that. Like, it is eminently doable for what amounts to pocket change in the city budget. So it's doable. Like, if this were really the crisis that they were talking about, it's doable. And P.S., the very night that they passed that ordinance, they passed a budget that gave me effectively no additional money. So that's why this is politics. Like,
yes, we do have to follow the money. I think it's so funny that you brought up shadow government, because I mentioned that last time and people were like, wow, you're talking about this. I mean, but this is the reality of, the space in which we live. And I think I don't think that ignorance is bliss. And I think it's important. This is why, again, we educate, then we advocate, we try to get small wins. And if there's a need to legislate, we do it. But there's an understanding of how things, if you're not political, a lot of people are come here's, not from here's, right? So half the time I'm oblivious like you all and trying not to be, so that I can be a good representative. But there's some very real background things that happen that I think the general public should be privy to. And then there's some background things that, hey, you guys, you don't even need to know that. That's why we have this republic, and you have people like Ramin, people like myself. This is why you elect folks to stand in the gap to sort of on certain things. I've got another couple questions here because I know I got to get moving, and I what I will try to do for Instagram is give you the front matter on this, because I thought it was pretty cool when you talked about tracking down people for marriage licenses, on like all these odd things that come through your office that people probably don't even know. One statement, another question. So the cousin Ed says, what is the way that technology industry can be held accountable for violations that regulated industries have? Example, the housing inflation caused by Zillow. I think I'll say I saw some bills on that last year, right? Like this past session, we were talking about using artificial intelligence to price gouge, or to specifically with rent. That is something that goes, and that is a state level sort of, we've got to put the things in place to say that is wrong, here's how it's punishable, and things like that. So yes, bad thing. I think we had 3 bills on that last session that sort of, I don't know if any of them made it through. I think I had one, but didn't file it because there were 3 other bills. We know it's a big deal here. What you got?
Yeah, those are attorney general things. So I would love to be able to do that stuff, but consumer protection and what's called affirmative civil enforcement, which is suing bad actors for doing bad things, that's what currently Jason Miyares doesn't do. It's what Mark Herring, who's one of my endorsers, used to do when he was attorney general. And it's what hopefully our next Democratic attorney general will do. And there is a state law component, because you can't sue somebody if you don't have a law that they're violating. So Jackie, what you were talking about is important. But as the Commonwealth's attorney, that's not me. I would love to, but it ain't me. Oh, and P.S., like on the flip side, the attorney general, especially Republicans, like to talk about themselves as top cop. That's a bunch of bunk. Like they have a very small criminal enforcement section. Yeah. They do criminal appeals, but almost all of their work is exactly this. It is suing the Trump administration to quit jacking with us. Or in the case of Jason Miyares, he just sued California to let Donald Trump send the Marines into Los Angeles for civil rights protest suppression. So you've got
mind your business, do your job.
Yeah, exactly. Like as I like to tell people, I recorded a TV commercial recently, and the makeup artist was a wonderful lady, and she's like, "How do you want me to do this?" I was like, "I'm not telling you that. Like that's your job. Like you're a professional. Like it's like I hate having people who don't do my job tell me how to do my job. And so what I do in exchange is anybody who's doing their job, I'm like, I don't care. Like you can make me orange and give me a comb over. I don't care. Like if that's your job,
more power to you. More power to you.
But pay very close attention to your attorney general.
Yes.
You know, part of the reason we haven't had any progress over the last 4 years is we have a Democratic legislature and a Republican governor who vetoed anything even remotely interesting. We desperately need the trifecta so that Jackie's bills don't get murdered when they land on the governor's desk.
These are facts. These are facts. So primaries are important, y'all. Like I think it really requires more of us to show up. So ours is next week on the 17th. You got to show up. I know that like you can get voter fatigue because it's a lot of voting going on in Virginia. Virginia's a consultant heaven. They love to come in here for political consultant heaven. But the real thing is, I think us having these touch points with you, everyday people, to what I like to think is 5 educated neighbors outperform 5,000 trolls on the internet. And so like what your role is in this is to get the understanding. We just have Ramin on here, but like go back and do your homework. I'm a trust and verify, trust but verify. You know what I mean? Like go back and check when you get things in the mail and you're like, is this real? Go back and check. And then also most of your elected officials, I would say, if you reach out to them and ask the question, I'm not going to say they're always going to be honest, but I will say that you can reach out and ask the question, right? I mean, I can't account for, do you know what I mean? I try to say I'm more transparent than anything. You don't always need the candidness, but like we try to be transparent. So Lisa A. Scales says, sales, I keep saying scales, sales says, and it would be required that, what is she? I think that Here it goes. It says the victim carve out in the SCV requires my convincing OES. All of these acronyms we don't know. You got to put them into for me. As they initially oppose, it's wonderful that your policies site that you have your policies on your site. It should be required.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. Great to have you on. The warm regards to Northern Virginia. And yes, you're right about all of that. But since we're independently elected constitutional officers, we can be as opaque as we want unless the General Assembly tells us otherwise.
Sound like a bill. She also said it should be required that judges and all court personnel get trauma-informed training. And Jason Mraz, he basically took down the civil rights page on the AG website. Yeah, this is why who you vote for matters.
Yes, exactly right.
This is why it matters. You're super good. This is why. Goodness. But that's why it matters. So, I don't know. What did we miss? I already know I'm gonna be late for the next thing. So might as well go in on it. I'm just looking at all the things to see if there's anything.
Can I just say, vote for me, please?
This was the thing. So here's why I say trust but verify, right? Trust but verify is I remember I picked up the paper one day and one of the headlines in there, the conversations was that Norfolk has one of the highest youth incarceration rates and da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, whoa, like, what is this even? I was like, what? And what I did, and I hope that you doers do, is I went and talked to Ramin. And I was like, yo, like, what? I'm reading this, and like, we've got the highest incarceration rates, like one of the highest incarceration rates in the Commonwealth. Like, what's happening in Norfolk? Like, what can we do? And your response was,
yes, we do. But and the but is really crucial. First of all, crime is itself a structural problem. Inadequate blue collar jobs, inadequate school, inadequate healthcare, adverse childhood experiences. That sets the table. But the reason that we are number one in that number is because of the way that people are counted. And the easiest way for me to reduce our youth incarceration numbers is by treating children as adults. Every time we shift a child and treat that child as an adult and put a 16 or a 15 or 17-year-old in adult prison, they disappear from that number. And so that high number was reflective of the fact that we're not sending kids to adult prison. Right? We've walked away, at least in Norfolk. I hate the idea of super predators. It was one of the most evil things. Juvenile lifers, totally evil, totally contrary to the evidence. So in my term, like probably the thing I'm proudest of in terms of reforms is that if somebody wants to send a child to adult court, they have to come through me. I have to okay it. And then even if the child goes to adult court, whether we ask for an adult prison sentence goes through me, nobody else. And that means with the exception of one murder case where I had no discretion, the law required me to treat that child as an adult and to seek an adult sentence. Everybody else I've kept out of adult prison. We could have put 50 kids in adult prison and our so-called youth incarceration numbers would be a lot lower. But they would be lower by actually being harder on the children and by treating them as adults and disappearing them into a system not designed for them. So if we had a way to account for the children treated as adults and sent, I think the numbers would be very different. And a lot of other cities and counties would have a lot to answer for. But because of that particular accounting method, it's basically an accounting trick. It's like having two credit cards and the only credit card balance you're looking at is on number one. It's like, oh, that's high, but what if the other one's zero or the other one's $1 million? Like there's a big difference there. So yeah, it was, and frankly, Jackie, when you asked me about it, like we had to have that same conversation internally. And I asked my people, I said, well, okay, and it was shootings, like very serious crimes. And I said, well, these look like serious stuff. Like how many of these kids would be treated as adults in name your neighboring city? And my people who had worked in other cities said all of them. pretty much all of them would have gone to adult court, and
Wow.
we don't do that. So that's why we're number one, because we're being less punitive.
What are you trying to do? What are you trying
Sorry,
to do?
sorry, trying to be fair. It's terrible.
Yeah. Well,
In fact, it's so terrible that I'm in the most expensive Commonwealth's attorney's race in the history of the Commonwealth of Virginia. Number one, in a Democratic primary where my opponent has been endorsed by the Norfolk Republican Committee.
that has been, I've gotten a lot, I have to field a lot of questions in the community. Like, is this true? I say my answer is always, I want you to look for yourself. I genuinely, because sources are on these things, go look. You should look, because I think the more informed you all are, the more capable you are of holding us accountable. And the more informed, the more self-direction you take on it, the less you're worried, I don't know if the word is worry, but the less you're leaning on me to tell you the truth, right? You also can be truth seekers. You also can be accountability buddies for how it is we do our work. I am hopeful that this conversation has sort of given you all some insight, not just on the role, right, of a Commonwealth cert attorney, but also, the constitutional roots, the statutory muscle, and a whole lot of, power wrapped into this 4-year contract that we get into with people. You get in 2-year contracts with me. You hire me for 2 years at a time. I'll be on the ballot in September, but I want to express gratitude to our Commonwealth's attorney for coming in and really, sitting with the things. As he said, next week is a primary. Y'all, people don't like to vote in primaries, and it is not a small, many of the elections, especially if we have a Democratic election in a city like Norfolk, that is the race, right? Essentially, the election is next week. There's really, in November is a formality. Even in the seat that I hold, right? In the seat that you all have allowed me to hold. If ever I'm in a primary, if ever I have an opponent within the same party construct, then that June is the election. So there's no waiting until November. This is the election essentially for specifically for local offices here in Norfolk. Statewide, it is a toss-up. So I'd say you got a lot of homework to do on that attorney general side, because there's a lot of candidates there, or not attorney general, lieutenant governor side. There's a lot of lieutenant governor candidates, y'all. It's a lot. I feel like it's city council all over again. And then in the Commonwealth's attorney side, you've got 2 candidates there. Commonwealth's attorney, the attorney general. I'm gonna get this right, y'all. This is attorney general. You've got 2 choices. Lieutenant governor, you've got several. And then and then it's a heads up sort of I don't want to say competition, but hiring process for our Commonwealth's attorney. So I'm inviting you all to vote in the election. Vote in the election. Early voting is still going on, so you can knock it out, Girl Scout or Boy Scout, and keep it moving. If you're like me, just so traditional, just gotta wait till that Tuesday to walk in there. I like to vote with my daughter, so I go in on election day. It's a big deal for us. But just do it. Just do it. Do your homework. Rameen's made his case. And I think it's a very good one. I've really enjoyed learning from you over the past 4 years, Ramin. I've really enjoyed your candor. And I've also, y'all know this, like he will testify in Richmond. And sometimes what I love about you, you're like, I don't think if I show up, it'll help you. to have such self-awareness and say, you know what, like, if I show up, your bill might get killed. So let me just step back and let you do your job on this one. But I appreciate that there is a level of self-awareness that you hope that your legislators have, because we can still learn from you. And let me see, unemployment is similar. Okay, got it. All right. So someone said they wish they could vote for you. But it's been an amazing conversation. We are way over time, y'all. A whole hour. This is unusual. But great.
Well, I love you, Jackie. You are the laced up legislator extraordinaire. Gratitude is the word that you work with every day and that you use. And I can't think of a better way to spend an hour than chatting with you and with all of our friends.
All right, Daddy. Ladies and gentlemen, Commonwealth Attorney Ramin Fadahi has already asked you for his vote. Again, accessible. Somebody said that he talked to him. And, oh, this was so sweet. Julia Newton says, talk to him. He's approachable. If you have questions, just do it. Let's do it, y'all. We're people. I put pants on. There are days I forget to brush my teeth, and then I'm like, oh, snap. Do I got some mouthwash in my bag, right? We're just humans trying to serve. No, I just want to normal people trying to do this work. Until next time, grateful to have. I'm going to pull you out. Say bye to the folks, Ramin.
Bye. It was a pleasure, everybody. Vote Tuesday so I don't get fired.
Yeah, we're hiring. Gratitude. So until next time, I'm Jackie Glass, Mama, Navy Vet Certified Doer, Lace-Up Legislator from the House of Delegates, 93rd District. Honored to serve. Hopefully I see you at the community sing-along next Saturday at Northside Park, 9 to 12. You're going to be there. Come sing the songs with us because we're just trying to love on each other. Y'all be well and make it a great day. Closer to history.